If you are watching this, you have likely reached a point of deep, quiet frustration. You have done the right things. You have followed the standard path. You have seen the specialists, you have had the MRIs, and you have undergone the procedures. Perhaps you have had the epidurals, the radiofrequency ablations, maybe even a trial of regenerative injections at a high-volume clinic. And yet, here you are. The pain remains. The function is still compromised. And the system that promised you relief is now offering you surgery as the only remaining exit. I am Dr. Gurpreet Singh Pata. For over 30 years, I have lived in the space between anesthesia, interventional pain, and metabolic health. I have owned the clinics and I have navigated the boardrooms of healthcare. But today I am speaking to you not as a provider of volume, but as an architect of biological restoration. There is a fundamental lie in modern medicine, one that is destroying your ability to heal. The lie is that your pain is a local mechanical problem that can be fixed with a local mechanical solution. It is the belief that if you have a joint problem, you simply inject the joint. If you have a disc problem, you simply inject the disc. It is an assembly line mentality that treats your body as if it were a car in a service bay, ignoring the fact that you are a living, breathing, complex biological organism. Today we are going to look at the starving tissue analogy. It is the most important lesson you will learn about your own recovery. Because until you understand why your tissue is starving, you will continue to waste your time and your capital on procedures that are destined to fail. Imagine for a moment that you have a garden, and in that garden, you have a beautiful, vital plant. Suddenly the leaves begin to wilt. They turn yellow. The plant begins to die. What is the first thing you would do? If you think like an assembly line doctor, you would walk up to the plant, trim the yellow leaves, paint them green, and perhaps spray a chemical on the petals to stop them from dropping. You are treating the symptom. You are fixing the appearance of the plant. But what if the problem isn't the plant? What if the problem is the soil? What if the soil is devoid of nutrients? What if the soil is toxic, filled with heavy metals or chemicals that are actively poisoning the root system? No matter how much you trim the leaves, the plant will continue to die. It is starving. It is in a hostile environment. Your body is that garden. Your joints, your discs, your tendons, these are the plants. When you have chronic pain, you are looking at the yellowing leaves. The assembly line model is focused entirely on the leaves. They want to inject the joint. They want to numb the nerve. They want to mask the signal, but they never ask, what is the state of your soil? Your soil is your metabolic terrain. It is your blood chemistry. It is your systemic inflammatory load. It is your hormonal balance. It is your insulin sensitivity. It is your gut health. The scientific literature is clear. Dr. Gökhan Hotamizligil demonstrated that when our systemic metabolic health fails, our bodies enter a state of chronic, low-grade inflammation. This isn't just about your waistline. This is about your systemic physiology. In this state, your body is biologically incapable of repair. You are in a catabolic state, a state of breakdown. You cannot, and I mean this with clinical certainty, you cannot out-inject a catabolic state. You cannot plant a healing seed into toxic soil and expect a harvest. Why does the starving tissue analogy hit so hard for someone with spinal or joint pain? Because of the biology of your anatomy. Your intervertebral discs and your articular cartilage are what we call avascular tissues. They do not have a robust direct blood supply. They do not have a constant highway of fresh nutrients arriving at their doorstep every second of the day. Instead, they rely on diffusion. They rely on the movement of nutrients from the surrounding environment into the tissue. They are the most vulnerable parts of your body. They are the first to feel the impact of a systemic metabolic collapse. When your systemic inflammation is high, the soil becomes toxic. It becomes thick with inflammatory cytokines. It becomes a hostile environment. This is why your previous injections failed. You likely went to a clinic where they performed a procedure without an audit. They took your money, they performed the injection, and they sent you home. But consider this, they injected regenerative factors into a tissue that was already drowning in systemic inflammation. They gave your body a building block when it was in a house fire. Your body didn't use those factors to repair because it was too busy using its remaining resources just to survive the inflammatory load. The injection was metabolized, the pain returned. At Regen, MD, we reject the assembly line. We reject the procedure-first model. Our protocol is rigid, and it is analytical. It begins not with a needle, but with a laboratory panel that rivals any diagnostic in the country. We look at the biomarkers that define the quality of your soil. We look at your C-reactive protein, your HbA1c, your lipid profile, your vitamin D levels, your homocysteine. We look at the biomarkers that define your soil. We do this because I have a fiduciary duty to your capital and your health. I will not perform an expensive procedure on a body that is currently catabolic. It is scientifically irresponsible. We start by stabilizing the terrain. We introduce the metabolic interventions necessary to shift you from a catabolic state to an anabolic state, a state of repair. Only when your blood chemistry indicates that your body is primed do we introduce the orthobiologics. This is the difference between a technician and a physician. A physician wants to ensure that when the target is hit, the body has the capacity to hold the repair. You have spent years treating your body like a car in a shop. It is time to start treating it like the complex living organism that it is. If you have failed to heal, it is not because your body is broken beyond repair. It is because you have been planting seeds in toxic soil. The starving tissue doesn't need more Band-Aid procedures. It needs a gardener who understands the soil. If you are ready to move past the assembly line, go to Regen, MD, request a concierge evaluation, stop spraying the leaves, start fixing the soil. I'm Dr. Gurpreet Singh Pata. Let's determine if your body is ready to heal.